All right, I'll go ahead and just start the introduction, and as people just kind of funnel in, we'll welcome them. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar hosted by GreenSpace Pro. High turnover is a big issue in the cannabis industry. Finding the right people to join your team can be difficult. That is why GreenSpace Pro has asked Tommy Truong with KayaPush Operations to be our guest speaker today to talk to people like you in the cannabis industry about best practices for hiring and managing your dream team, as well as the importance of employee engagement. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please drop them in the Q&A and we will get them answered at the end. I would like to introduce you to Tommy Truong, the co-founder and CEO of KayaPush Operations. KayaPush helps dispensaries scale through an easy people management platform. Tommy has helped thousands of business owners grow their companies through simplifying workforce management. He will be speaking on the best practices for hiring, onboarding, training, employee engagement, and building a world-class team. And Nick Hoven is GreenSpace Pro's Customer Success Director and an expert in business operations. He will be showing us how to keep your HR organized while onboarding new employees. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Tommy and he will get us started.
Thanks, Sarah. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Oh, sorry, Sarah. I'm unable to turn on my camera.
Should be able to. Let's see here. Let's see if that does it.
Perfect. Thank you.
There we go. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that was a problem.
Okay. I often ask business owners and entrepreneurs this question is, why should somebody work for you? And it's a question that I want to introduce this question to everybody here, is that given that wages are competitive, you likely pay competitive wages compared to your competitors. Why should somebody work for you and not your competitor or any other business? And my goal today is to, get you guys thinking about this question, and hopefully after this webinar, be more intentional on your employee experience. Okay, we work with thousands of businesses, and today I wanna go through best practices of what we see work. The top dispensaries and businesses out there, what they're doing on the employee experience, and we'll start with hiring. Okay, according to Brandon Hall is a HR research firm. They've worked with over 10 million employees over 30 years. So they've seen it all. And according to them, organizations that lack a standard interview process are 5 times more likely to make a bad hire. So, you take this stat, and I see it across the board, and you couple it with the high turnover rate that we see in our industry, and it just exacerbates the problem. So, it's so important to have a framework when we're hiring. So let's talk about that. Okay, so what are the best practices for recruiting? Best practices that I see work. One is it's always be recruiting. So hopefully, when you guys start hiring and the next position that you open up, you're gonna get hundreds of applicants, right? You're gonna get more qualified applicants than you can hire. Oftentimes, let's say you have a position or 2 positions for a bartender role, and you have 5 candidates that are really good. You can only hire 2. So it's best practice to keep the 3 that you've done all of this work getting to know warm, right? What a lot of businesses do is they'll not only ask these candidates, hey, can we contact you when there's a position open, but they'll maintain communication throughout the process, because it's not next month that you have a position open. Maybe, hopefully, it's not until 6 months from now, right? So what best practices, what you should do is, offer candidates discounts every 2 months, right? Send them an email update on like your culture, events that you're hosting. And that way you're top of mind when candidates are looking for a position, but also when you have a position that's open, you have rapport there and candidates know who you are and they already have a relationship with you. So think about having 10, 20 people on your virtual bench on what that would do to your to shortening your recruiting cycle. Another best practice that we see work really well is leveraging your employees. Typically, and this is true for our company as well, referred candidates that are referred by employees typically get hired faster and they stay longer with the organization. So what we see work really well is providing employees with small incentives, say after the probationary period, 3 to 6 months, give employees a small bonus, but also give employees that feedback on why the referral was so good, right? So like, hey, Max, the team member that you referred is awesome because X, X, and X. Can you think of any other your friends that have these characteristics? And leverage your employees to be, your ultimate recruiter for the business. We see that work really well. And also leverage software. So, if you're recruiting, do not use Gmail as your recruiting tool. Adopt a ATS platform. It'll help you organize candidates and really build the framework to shorten the hiring cycle, but also ensure that, you save time through automating outreach, as well as you have the statistics on how well you're hiring. Okay, let's talk about best practices for interviewing. Oh, Sarah,
Oh,
sorry.
I apologize. There was an error. Sorry.
No worries. I can just continue talking as you pull it up.
Yeah, almost back up.
What we see work really well is oftentimes when you have a job posting up, and we see this a lot with our clients, is that you'll be inundated with so many applicants, right? Sometimes, particularly in a new state, you'll have 200, 300 applicants for 5 positions. And the best practice to save time is to do a pre-screening call with your applicant. So instead of setting up a 1-hour interview, you generally know if somebody is not a fit within 15 minutes. It'll take longer to see if somebody is a fit, but 15 minutes, within the first 15 minutes, you'll know if they're not a fit. So, why schedule an hour for an interview when you can do 4 pre-screening calls within 1 hour and really shorten the interview process? So that's one tip. Another tip is if you're really, really busy and you're scaling multiple locations and there's no time of day, leverage software like SparkHire. SparkHire is a software that we use internally. And what SparkHire allows you to do is preset interview questions for candidates to answer. And candidates will answer this, on their computer, and SparkHire will record their answers. And it allows you to review the interview, the pre-screening question interview at your own leisure. So you can do it at home. You can do it after, the day's over, and you can fast forward questions, but also it allows you to compare candidates side by side. SparkHire has reduced our interview time by 50%. And okay, let's talk about the interview process, best practice, right? All of us we've done interviews before. We know that we should standardize questions. There should always be 2 interviewers when you're interviewing someone, and it allows you to eliminate or decrease personal bias, but it allows you to be objective when you're assessing the candidate. And a really good tip, and this is by far the best tip for interviewing, is so you should have a list of characteristics that that you want in the position that you're hiring for. For example, a bud tender, you should have 10 to 15 characteristics that you're looking for, right? After the interview, each interviewer should independently rank the candidate based on this criteria that you have, right? 1 to 10. And you should compare your notes afterwards and really debrief on any criteria where you're 2 points away. So if I think that Sam is a 9 in this criteria, but my counterpart thinks Sam is a 7, why are we 2 points different? And this allows you over time to speak the same language and to understand the criteria and the candidates more succinctly as a team. And lastly, based on that stat, Brandon Hall saying that you're 5 times more likely to make a bad hire if you don't have a standardized process. Adopt a framework. A really good resource is Who the Book. They have great free content for interviewing candidates. I have to say though that if you adopt a framework online, make sure that you make it your own. Some of these frameworks are really good for hiring executives, and it's not practical if you're hiring a bud tender to be interviewing them for 6 hours. So make it your own. Okay, so reference checks. Reference checks by far is the most important part of the recruiting process, and it's often misunderstood, right? Oftentimes I hear owners and managers say that what's the point of doing a reference check? The candidate is gonna give me someone that likes them, so all references generally are good, right? So what's the point of doing this? So let's talk about this. Be wary of references that are to coworkers or non-reporting managers. You don't want to call a friend for a reference, right? What I like to do is I like to go on LinkedIn and verify the person that I'm going to be talking to, where they worked, when they worked, and does that match with the candidate. During reference calls, you want to validate and verify significant accomplishments, right? And I find that the best question to ask is, what is the best way to manage Tommy? Best question. Because it allows you to have constructive coaching conversations with the person you're talking to. And it allows you to kind of get more insightful information on Tommy's behavior and Tommy's standard operating procedure. It's so much more constructive than what is Tommy's weakness, right? And another tip that I have to say, and this one I highly recommend that you do, is, and it doesn't pertain to bud tenders, but if you're hiring a manager that's senior, for example, or if you're growing, scaling, and you want to hire a director or a VP, this is what I highly recommend you do. Let me tell you a story of what happened to us actually not too long ago. So we're hiring a marketing manager, right? Me and our VP of marketing. And we found a candidate that had marketing experience as well as cannabis experience. And the industry is so young that it's really hard to find candidates that have both, right? So we're really happy and really excited to get to know this candidate. And we interviewed him, and the interview went well. He made significant accomplishments and impacts in the last 2 organizations that he was with. And I found it a little bit odd though that he didn't give us the owners as references, considering how closely he worked with the owners and the impact that he had. But that's fine though. My SOP is always, when I'm interviewing senior manager positions, to talk to the owner directly, right? You guys would be so, it's surprising that how much people want to help you, particularly if you're an owner connecting with another owner. Running a business is hard, and generally people want to help, and I've never been turned down before. So I find the owner online, I message him, hey, we're thinking of hiring this candidate. Would you mind if we connected for a few minutes? I would love to get your experience with him. This is a really important position for us. Don't worry, this conversation would not leave us. The candidate would not know about this, right? And he messages me 5 minutes there, hey, here's my number, give me a call. So I give him a call. To give you guys some context, this is a fairly large organization, 10 dispensaries. They do, and they also have a CBD product line. They do 20 million, 25 million a year, right? And the owner tells me that, within the first few months, things were fine. Things went well. The candidate was responsible for creating the newsletter, which blew up. They had a few hundred emails and engaged subscribers. But after 6 months or so, things went sour, and then went sour quick. They had differences in the direction of the company, right? And one of the things that the candidate was responsible for was registering the dispensary name. And he did that, and he did that in his personal email, and he held it hostage. He wanted $50,000 for it. They invested so much into this that they decided, you know what, let's cut our losses. I paid him for it. And when he left with the newsletter, right, which was done on company time. But he also tried to poach one of the key employees of that business to a business that he was going to. Yeah. So one reach out on LinkedIn really saved us a lot of time and potentially, a lot of headache. So if there's one thing that you guys should adopt, I highly recommend, is independently verify the accomplishments of the candidate that you're talking to, especially if it's a role that's crucial in the business. Okay, let's talk about employee onboarding. Same organization, Brandon Hall. They found that great employee onboarding can improve employee retention by 82% and productivity by 70%. And just think about if you've ever had, if you ever worked or started working for an organization and your first day was just chaotic, nothing was organized, nothing was really planned. What was your first impression of that company? And how long did it take you to turn that initial impression around, right? We only have one chance to make a first impression, and that first impression generally stays with us for a period of time. So let's talk about best practices of what we see for employee onboarding. Onboarding starts the moment that the offer letter is signed, right? So let's say you have a candidate that's not starting in 2 weeks or a month. It's best practice to set a cadence in your email to send an update to that candidate 2 weeks before, 1 week before, 1 day before. And it's really easy. Shoot them facts, on their coworkers, environment, they're coming in, how excited you are that they're starting. It just makes the person that's joining your organization feel like they're welcome. You should also leverage software. There are software out there, like ours, for example, that allows you to digitize all of the onboarding documents and collect the necessary information prior to onboarding. This just ensures that the first day, all that paperwork is, out of the way, and we can really start what's important. Regular manager check-ins is another thing that top organizations do. It's so important, and this does not take time at all to have a cadence with your new team member. Pull them aside and ask them, how do you feel, right? Do you have everything you need, and how can I help you? And it just makes them feel that they're welcomed and that you care about their experience, because it can be very daunting to start in a new organization and meeting new people. And also map out the first 30 days of training. You do not want to have the environment where someone comes in, there's nothing prepared for them. And we can talk a little bit more about this and what that looks like. Okay, let's talk about best practices for training. According to Retail Touchpoints is a prominent organization in the retail space. Through their study, and this is validated based on the information that we have as well, is 27% of people say their training is ineffective, boring, and not engaging enough. And the average person remembers 7 to 9% of what they've learned 30 days later. So imagine sitting in a training session for an hour with your team, and your team members only remembering 6 minutes of what they've learned 30 days later, right? What does this tell us? This tells us that long form classroom type training is very ineffective and really expensive. So what are the best practices for training? The best organizations leverage micro weekly training rhythms, so training platforms. So a platform like Spiffy, Zonify, Semtabs, etc. What these platforms allow you to do is set up very short micro training sessions, 5-10 minutes, right? Short quiz, short product facts with quizzes at the end. And a lot of organizations leverage the slow time during the day. So during the day, there will be 5 to 10 minutes that there's no customers in there, and it allows your team to just be on their phone and go through training programs, right? And what we found is that 7 to 10 minutes a day, every day that they're working, is better than a 1-hour classroom setting once a week. Employees today, we live in the TikTok era, where people today are used to short bursts of information. They retain short bursts of information a lot better than, a long 1-hour classroom setting. A lot of businesses today also leverage suppliers. So your dispensary, leverage your supplier, right? There's nothing more than what a supplier would want than talk about their product, right? How it's grown, the terpenes, etc. So that's leverage your supply. A lot of dispensaries do this once a week. The feedback that we get though is that some suppliers are really engaging and really, on it, and the team gets engaged, and they get a lot of great things from it, but all the other suppliers are just boring, or they give information that's not useful to patients or to customers. So it's always best practice to treat your suppliers as partners. It's ultimately your responsibility to ensure that your training sessions are useful. So redirect them, let them know that, hey, it wasn't as effective because of these reasons. And hey, we had another supplier do these things and the team found it really engaging, really effective. So it's really your responsibility to make sure that you maximize your team's time, because ultimately you're paying for it. Okay, SOPs is one of the most important things that an organization has, particularly in the cannabis space, but it's oftentimes it's not urgent, but it's very important. And when things are not urgent, but very important, they tend to be left on the wayside, where fires are, as a business owner, right? You're constantly dealing with fires, you're constantly dealing with things that are just right in front of you. And oftentimes SOPs are not that. So the best practice that we have with SOPs, and what we find works really well, is who is the owner of this SOP? Like, who is the person ultimately responsible for ensuring that's short, it's concise, it's followed, and it's updated, right? And oftentimes it doesn't have to be the business owner, because of that very fact that SOPs are important but not urgent. So I highly recommend that you designate an owner that can put SOPs as one of their main priorities, right? It could be your managers, or it could be key employees that can own this, right? Empower them to own this. Typically, when a key employee owns this, SOPs are done so much better than when the ownership team owns this. That's a stat. The best practice of what we see is have a recurring cadence on reviewing SOPs, right? What a lot of organizations do is they review one key SOP per month and they rotate that SOP over. So, cash process, inventory process, closing, opening, etc. Right? And you do it collectively as a team. You go through the SOP and you identify what are we not doing because it's not practical, right? It's important, but we're not doing it because it's not practical. And is there another? It's important. Is there another way of doing it where is more practical? What are we not doing because it's not important? And if it's not important, we should take it out, right? What are we doing, but it's not required? Exactly the same. And what's missing? What's missing in this? So that's a really good cadence to when you're reviewing your SOPs. You want to be very diligent because the SOPs need to be concise. They need to be followed and they need to be updated. So what's the best software to use? What we found is the software that you're going to adopt needs to have these four characteristics. The most important is it needs to be easy to use. You can adopt software that's super robust, right? That has all the bells and whistles, but if it's not easy to use, it's not going to be adopted. And that's the most important thing when you're looking at software, particularly a software that's going to drive your operations, is it needs to be easy to use, right? It needs to be collaborative, right? Because you're not running a business yourself. You have to be able to assign team members in and work as a team. Your software should have an easy way to create templates. So it should come with stock templates for you to leverage, but also it should be easy for you to create your own templates. And it should be easy for you to set recurring tasks. So some SOPs need to be done on an ad hoc basis. Some of them need to be done daily or weekly, etc. So if you're looking for software, your software should have 4 of these characteristics. Okay, I want to introduce the concept of a high functioning team. And this is a problem that we're solving right now with our partners. We find that, talking to hundreds of dispensaries, that only a small percentage of dispensaries have high functioning teams. So let's talk about that. According to Gallup is another prominent research firm in the HR space. What they found is that employees are 17 times more likely to be engaged if they have a performance target. 17 times, right? 1,700 times. So not a small number, So imagine, for example, if you were to ask your manager or ask yourself, how are we trending this week? What is our KPI on KPI that we're measuring? How are we doing this week? Would you be able to rattle off that KPI on top of your head? Would you know what your KPIs were last week, right? Do you know why it's going up or down? And do you have a game plan to march in the right direction, right? Organizations that I talk to where the ownership team and the managers can rattle off the KPIs in their head and can tell me the story of what's happening. Generally, those are the most well-run organizations. There's a correlation between understanding your numbers and having a really well-run ship. Now, when I talk to organizations that their employees have that same rigor with KPIs, that their employees are invested and really, really care about their own KPIs, those organizations are on steroids. And that's a high functioning team, right? So what I found is there's 4 characteristics of a high functioning team when you distill it down to 4 things. 1, high functioning teams are goal oriented, right? According to Gallup, people with a target, right, are 17 times more likely to be engaged. So that's no accident, right? There should always be a target. The target, people should know the direction that they're marching, and the target should be there should be able to be an improvement to achieve that target, right? You have to do something to improve it, but it needs to be achievable as well, right? So there's one aspect of a high functioning team. Another aspect is there's playful competitiveness. Competition is fun, right? And there needs to be like, if you come into your team and you hear that banter where, lack of a better word, they're just shooting the shit, they're talking back and forth, that's a fun environment to be in, you know? And that is a part of a high functioning team. It helps the engagement so much when it's fun. High functioning teams are customer centric, right? Nothing happens without the customer. Like, our customer is everything that we have, and we don't have a business without our customers. And that's how we feel as an organization, and that's how every organization should feel, right? Now, I'll give you a story, and this happened last month. I visit dispensaries. I try to visit 2 dispensaries a week, right? And it's just something that I do, and it helps me kind of understand different how different organizations run. And last month, I went, and I never visit the same dispensary. Last month, I went to a store and I saw that they had a strain that I like. So I asked the bud tender, "Hey, that's awesome. Can I get Red Congo?" And the bud tender asked me, what is it about the strain that you like? So I proceed to tell him, I'm a flower guy, I'm a sativa guy. I like to be functional when I'm high. So I generally do it to work out, to clean, to work, right, to think. And I don't like coming down. So I like to microdose, right? And he mentioned, "Hey, have you ever tried microdosing sprays?" Right? We have these sprays, 3 milligrams. It could give you kind of the same of what you're looking for, but a different form. And I was like, what? So I did. I bought it, right? And that is a high functioning person, you know? He asked me why. He understood the inventory well enough to give me a recommendation, and he upsold me. But he did it from a customer centric space, right? And I'm grateful for him for doing that, because I would have never tried microdosing sprays had he not, you know? So that's an example, because oftentimes dispensary owners, some dispensary owners are resistant on giving goals to their team because they're afraid that their team might push product that customers don't necessarily need. But there's a way of doing it, because if you put the customer at the center, at the fabric of everything you do, then you're only making recommendations that really truly matter to the customer. On the flip side, I have another story where I went to a dispensary, I didn't know anything on the menu. I gave them kind of what I was looking for, or her, sorry. And poor girl, she went through the POS platform and just started reading the descriptions of the inventory. And it just took too long. So I just decided, hey, I'll have that, right? And that's the opposite, you know, of a person that's not customer centric and just not engaged enough, and in that environment didn't understand the inventory well enough to be customer centric. And finally, high functioning teams, recognition, right? High functioning teams recognize the team for their hard work and achievement. So there's social recognition, but also tangible recognition as well. So what are we playing for? What are we bantering about? And it's generally something small, right? An experience, goods, money, etc. I'll quickly go over this. And I don't have time really to dive really deep into high functioning teams and the strategy behind it. And maybe this is something that I can do in the future webinar. But this is a powerful strategy that a lot of dispensaries deploy in getting their teams engaged. One, they set a target for their team. What is the target, and what are we marching for, right? And this is just an example. They create an Employee of the Month award. Okay, employees that hit the KPI are eligible to draw to be the employee of the month. There's a winner every month, right? Leverage your suppliers. So there's nothing would make a supplier more happy than being involved in a contest, right? Because they want to make sure that their product is understood and from your team and sold. And so get your suppliers to give you prizes. If you don't have the budget for prizes, leverage your suppliers. Trips, tour trips from your suppliers is great. Having your team kind of tour their premises, getting a product if it's legal in your state, concert tickets, gifts, etc. Right. And then once you have this dialed in, you can have a winner of the year. So an employee that hits their KPI the most in a year wins, right? And have a big prize. You can even set a team prize every quarter. If our team hits these KPIs that are very customer centric, right? The team gets X, and celebrate and go big. So have badges, pins, announcements, and just go big, right? Make sure that the team is excited about what they're doing and the impact that they're making. I want to introduce the concept of growth. And this by far is probably the most important part of this talk. So let's talk about this. According to Arlington Research, another research firm, 76% of workers say they want future-focused development. It would make the employer more attractive. In the same study, 89% of millennials want future-focused development at work. So let's talk about what that means. What is future-focused development? Right. As a business owner and dispensary owners, you guys invest hundreds of thousands of dollars, right, into your business, hoping and praying that your employees care as much about your business as you do, right? That your employees are engaged in your business as much as you are. But why should they? Why should your employees care about your business, right, beyond their current duties if they don't feel like you care about their future? And that's what we found. The best organizations that there's a correlation that I talk to that have growth embedded in their operating system. They talk to their employees about growth early and often tend to have a team that's the most engaged, and they tend to have the lowest employee turnover. So what does growth look like, right? Growth doesn't mean promotions, right? It doesn't have to mean promotions, and it doesn't have to mean salary increases. So if you're a dispensary that, there's just really no room for promotions, right? What growth really means is, and this is applicable to you because you can incorporate growth. What this means is sitting down with your team and asking them, hey, what's your goal for over the next 5 years, right? What do you want to be? And it doesn't have to be within an organization, but what are your goals? And understanding that. What are the skills that you need to obtain to march forward with your 5-year goal? How can we be a business, right? How can our business be a vehicle for you to obtain these skills? And that's essentially what having growth conversations means, is setting your employees up for their future, right, beyond your organization. And oftentimes, and it's very counterintuitive, right, is, how setting my employees up to leave the business, that's going to make them more engaged, and that's going to reduce employee turnover. But you'll be amazed at once you invest in your team, right, they invest in the business back. Sometimes, when you talk to, and I'm running kind of past time, so I have to make this quick. Sometimes you're gonna talk to your employees and they're gonna not know what they want to be in 5 years, and this is very, this is consistent because you're talking to very young people, right? Sell them, and this is an opportunity for you to sell them on how important customer service skills and sales skills is for every single career that they're gonna be in, right? If you want to be a future manager, if you want to be a future CEO, if you want to be a future business owner, you need to have really, really good people skills. So let's develop that here, right? A growth can also mean exposing them to different areas of your business, so training, product purchase, etc. I want to quickly talk about culture, and we'll end with culture. So what is culture, right? It's a fairly bloated word when you go online. You can Google corporate culture, and I don't understand. And I'm part of an HR organization, right? And what corporate culture really means when you go online. But really, for us, culture is how your employees define your business, right? What are the words that your employees use to describe your business? According to Randstad, 58% of workers say that they'll stay at their jobs if their jobs had lower salaries, if it meant working for a great boss. And this is so consistent with what we found when we started polling employees in our platform. Every quarter, we hire an external consulting firm to anonymously ask our employees for feedback, right? And this is anonymous. And one of the questions that they ask our employees, our team, is what are the 3 words that you think of when you think of Kaya, right? Give me 3 words that describe the company, right? So these are the words that were used to describe that our employees use to describe us. So the larger the words, the more it was used. When we started this business, it was really, really, really important for us that we had an environment that was fun, that was challenging, right? That people grew, and that was rewarding, that everybody knew the impact that they made to the businesses that we worked with. So when we started this business, we were very intentional with the environment that we created. And we wanted to make sure that people were having fun, that they were being challenged, they grew as professionals and as individuals, and they saw the impact they were making. So my question to you guys is, what are the 3 words that what are the words that you guys want your team to describe your business, right? Write those words down and be very intentional with the environment that you're creating, because ultimately you control your culture. Okay, so just quickly, employee engagement performance is an issue that we are tackling today with our partners. And if you're interested in learning how other top organizations are creating an environment that is fun, that is engaging, that's rewarding, then contact us. We'd love to connect. Also, we started a podcast called KayaCast, and I'm really passionate. It's really important to me that we share best practices on what's working, what's not working to this community. The cannabis community has given us so much. I've never had more fun in my life, and so I fly around the country. We do talks and we do webinars, but what we realize is it's not a scalable form, and the most scalable form to talk about what we see that's working in the industry is through a podcast. So check out KayaCast if you're interested in learning what the top dispensaries are doing to scale their business, as well as what industry experts are talking about that's most prevalent in the industry. Okay, with that, I'd like to introduce you guys to Nick.
Thank you for the introduction, Tommy, and thank you for your presentation. It was fantastic. It's inspirational, and it leads me into our partnership between GreenSpace and KayaPush, because we've learned a lot from your team and from you, Tommy, and we use your inputs to really strengthen our platform at GreenSpace. And I'm going to go over this pretty quickly. We have templates within GreenSpace, including HR, and this is something that we partnered with KayaPush in order to bring to our customers as part of our GreenSpace platform. Once you're in GreenSpace, if you're big or small, sometimes you have your own SOPs. You can send those over and we populate those for you, or we have these automatically ready for you once you log into GreenSpace. And these are always constantly updated because hiring is always ever changing, like Tommy said. And when it comes down to it, it needs to be organized because you might be interviewing 1 to 100 candidates. So how do you keep track of that? And GreenSpace is one of those ways to do it. And especially in retail, you might see a lot of turnover and you want to keep that information in one place. So say an employee does leave, like Tommy's story from before, they can't really take it with them because it's all in GreenSpace, and it's in the cloud, and everything has permissions, and you're able to keep everything in track. So what Tommy said too, 4 of our big pillars of GreenSpace is a productivity tool focused on the cannabis market is our ease of use. So everybody's able to get in here and use it. You can have a champion, but everybody can be a champion at GreenSpace because it's not as complicated as other productivity softwares. It really encourages collaboration. We really want from the owner of the corporation, of the company, all the way down to the retail employee to be able to use GreenSpace and see. As well as our templates like you're seeing right here, which was made by KayaPush and put in the GreenSpace for your use. And also tasks. So you have your start dates, your due dates, and who can be assigned. This keeps you on track, especially as Tommy mentioned about, 30 days into a new hire, you want to be able to remember, okay, we need to follow up with our new employees, see how things are going, give them a little motivation, things like that. This can all be done within GreenSpace. And this goes from the beginning to the end, and you can separate these out, but whether you're onboarding your new hire, or you need tips for new hiring, or you're setting up your systems, or you're just gathering information, you can attach files right in the GreenSpace. There's no set limit on files you can put in here, size, anything like that. And it helps you keep track as you do these onboardings, and you keep employee retention, which are all things that need to be done when you're starting up your cannabis company or you're established. And what is really good is what we like to talk about is our collaboration. When you dive deep into these tasks, each task you can dive in, you can assign different assignees in your organization who needs to use this. So if you want to have visibility as an owner into what's going on in your specific location, you can tag yourself, you can tag your manager, your retail employee, and you can comment directly to them. You can use this as your social tool as well, in order to really boost employee engagement. And this is one workspace that we're showing right now because we're talking more about HR, but we also have, when you go into it, you can manage all your locations through GreenSpace, and each location can be whittled down to the project of your HR onboarding. So it's very easy to organize. and it'll be easy for you to keep track of, the hiring in your Manhattan location, the hiring in your Corona location. It's all about organization and being able to keep track of where things are. So as a manager, as an owner, you're able to keep track of the business from afar, because as you expand and you have multiple locations, it gets a little bit harder to know what's going on in each location. And this enables you to empower your managers to really step up and populate this so you're able to see from afar. So you might not have to have that direct conversation every single day. You'll be able to locate this in one space within GreenSpace. But I know we are have a cutoff at 3, so I want to open it up for questions for Tommy as well, because I think he had some really great, insightful things to say. What I like to do is reach out to me directly. We'll give our information and we can set up a demo. So we go through this more one-on-one, because we have a dedicated onboarding team to help you bring in your SOPs, work with your new hiring, so that you're able to make the best use of GreenSpace. So.
Thank you, guys. I'll put your contact information up here. That was a lot of good information, Tommy. I really enjoyed it. I liked what you said about the culture. Like, how does a company make you feel? Like, I think that's a really good way to look at it. So if you, I don't see any questions dropped in the Q&A. Now's the time. If you'd like, if you want to raise your hand, I can even allow you to talk. If you'd like to ask Tommy and Nick some questions, please let us know. Well, I guess, then we will wind it down. I really appreciate everyone for coming, and Tommy, thank you so much for being our guest speaker. We really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thanks for having
Tommy.
me, guys.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, thank you. You guys have a great day.
You too.